Hello fantasy faithfuls and welcome to the live stream. Today I will be talking about the NFC West and my predicted market share for all four teams. But first I want to talk to you a little bit about the upcoming content on our CST platforms. So we have on Thursday the market share for AFC North on CSTFantasy.com. We have Scheme Fit with Jordan Howard and the Eagles on Saturday. Next week we have NFC North on the live stream here on Monday. Market share for AFC West. That's a big train going outside my window. On Thursday the 11th, and Scheme Fit with Carlos Hyde and the Chief on Saturday the 13th. Also want to remind you all that the Fantasy Snapshot bundle will drop in May with video breakdowns of over 150 players for the 2019 season. I'm very excited about this project and I hope you will enjoy it too. After that, don't forget to check out other videos here on the channel as well. I have plenty of Scheme Fit videos with players that have changed teams like Odell Beckham and Le'Veon Bell, or have a new coach like James Winston with Bruce Arians and Sam Darnold with Adam Gase. But now let's tweet out that we're live. And yes, that's done. So we're gonna start with the Arizona Cardinals for the NFC West. And let me just double check the sound, because the sound was a little bit off last week. So you just want to double check that. The music might be a little high. I'm gonna turn that down just a smidge. So we're gonna start with the... But other than that, the sound sounds good. So let's look. I'm sorry about that. Let's look at the Arizona Cardinals and their market share. So you can see on the screen, I don't know if you were here last week, but let me go through the market share just a little quick. What you see on the screen is the share of targets and the total pass pool for the Arizona Cardinals, and their total rush pool here to the right in blue, and the percent of carries I have for the different positions. So starting off, we have from the top, we have the receivers 1, 2, and 3. Then we have tight end. You can't see that, but we have tight end 1 and 2, because I got some weird formulas on the left that really doesn't look well on screen. And then we have RB1 and RB2 followed by that. And lastly, it's quarterback down here with 6%. See, we're a little laggy on the stream. Hopefully that's not an issue. Please let me know if you're experiencing any problem with the resolution or the stream in general. I see there might be some issues with content streaming. I might have to turn off the music, but it should be good. I have green. But it mainly is an analysis of the last couple of years from the coaching standpoint. And did the stream just die? It's supposed to be live. Let me double check. No, it's live. Okay then. Then it's just my preview. Let's keep going. So it's an analysis of what the team has done over the last couple of years, and their coach and the different players on the team, that gives me these numbers. And down here we have the total pass pool and rush pool, which comes from what the team has done, but also what their opponents have done. So if they're facing a group of teams that usually give up a lot of passes, that usually means they have a pretty good offense that forces a lot of teams to pass on them, or in the Cowboys' sake, they have a lot of carries because they do have a lot of carries. So it's a weighing process going over it to figure out the share of targets and the share of carries for each player, but also how many their total pass will be. And for passes, I've been roughly 25 off on average, so it's a pretty good estimate on how many passes they will do. And for the quarterbacks and running backs, it's more down to 20, 15 off. So let's look at the players a little bit more. And what we have Christian Kirk as wide receiver 1, Larry Fitzgerald 2, Kevin White as 3. I thought that was a little fun. Then I had Charles Clay, who they signed, and then of course David Johnson, Chase Edmonds as RB2, also a little fun. And for now, it's Josh Rosen as quarterback. I'm pretty sure that's gonna change, but he'll be there for now. That helps me just a little bit to figure out, for instance, Christian Kirk's projected receptions with Rosen since they've played together. But that can, of course, change. For instance, if they draft Kyler Murray. Continuing, we then see that for Christian Kirk, he will have 24% of all passes for 127 targets if they continue with the upward trend of Christian Kirk. For 2, that's a downward trend. For Fitz, he'll only see 66 targets. 52 for White, that might be a little high, but I'm not even sure White will be the third receiver. 58 for Charles Clay, that's pretty good. And 71 predicted targets for David Johnson and 223 carries. That's a big load. Not as big as some other top running backs, but it's still really high, especially with the 71 targets. So expect him to have a big load again next year, even though he was the running back that had, the only running back who had over 200 carries that didn't reach 1,000 rushing yards last year. I still expect him to be really, really good in 2019. Probably a little bit better. If you remember my analysis on him last year, it was that he had over 60% of his runs up the middle, which is crazy compared to other running backs. The league average is 29% of all your carries up the middle, and he had 60, which is more than double. So he became very stale and very easy to defend against because you knew what he was going to do. So that's the Cardinals. To me, they're not one of the more interesting teams out there this year. The only real, I'm like threat or skill player in fantasy is David Johnson. Other than that, Christian Kirk, he does have some value, but it's not in a 10-team league. I think it's going to be difficult for him to find value unless Kyler Murray comes in and just blows the roof off, which I don't expect him to do in the passing game. But it's a fun team, but it's not an interesting team in regards to fantasy, since they're not high scoring as of now. But this was the first team in the NFC West, so let me get the next one up on screen for you. There we go. And that is the Los Angeles Rams. This is an interesting team for fantasy. They have, look at the percentage here. 12 is actually wrong. I'll see that instantly. Let me fix that real quick. Because I see that being wrong. It's supposed to be 19 point something. So you see how close they are with 22, 20, 19, 10 for the tight end. So you have 112 targets for the number 1 receiver, 101 for the 2, and 100 for the wide receiver 3. If you're wondering what that noise was, that was my wife working out and doing something. But then we have, for now, assuming Todd Gurley's healthy. I know that's a big assumption, but assuming he's healthy, 267 carries with 77 predicted targets. They just hammer him with stuff, and that's one of the reasons he got hurt. So we're gonna have to look into him a little bit more as the offseason goes and see if he actually can carry this amount again. I don't see that, but I don't want to manipulate the numbers due to a health issue that I honestly don't know that much about. I'm no doctor. A lot of us aren't doctors, so it's difficult to predict somebody else's health, especially when you're kind of kept in the dark. But the Super Bowl and the conference championship should leave us a little bit of give us a little bit of an understanding on where he is, and it's a little bit uncomfortable right now. But the way I predicted their starters of now, and this is not just me, this is looking at other people's websites and depth charts as well. We have Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp as 1, 2, and 3. But they're pretty much even. You saw the projected targets here on the left. 112, 101, and 100. So it goes up and down. They're a little bit... it can fluctuate depending on who plays more games. If you have an injury, like Kupp last year, I could have seen Kupp having more targets than the other two last year, but I have him as the third guy this time around. Higbee sees a lot of targets, 53. Everett has 31 as well, which is pretty good. And I said Todd Gurley, 77, 267 as of now. This will probably have to be reevaluated as the offseason goes on. I don't have a RB2 for them right now. I can see them drafting one or picking up maybe Duke Johnson, who just went on the trade block. A change of pace guy would be beneficial for them. And then Jared Goff, of course, as the quarterback. But they're extremely relevant for fantasy. You can pretty much pick up any one of these guys and be pretty happy with your pick, depending on where you pick them, of course. But I like to pick up Brandon Cooks because for some reason people forget about him in a lot of leagues I played. I got a lot of value of him even when he was with the Saints a while back and with the Patriots and last year as well. Robert Woods, I think he's going to be really, really good. You can't see the projection I have for him on screen right now, but right now I see him outgaining Cooks in yards with 11 more targets than him. So I'm very excited about Robert Woods next year. More excited than I was last year with him. And I've always been a huge Cooper Kupp fan. I traded him last year, unfortunately, but I got Mike Evans. So I'm good. I'm good. It wasn't a straight swap, but I'm very happy with getting Evans on my team. But this is an extremely interesting team that I think will be highly relevant in fantasy. As I said, they have some really even shares going. Probably the most even team out there. It's usually around the 22 mark, and then I'll drop down to 16 and then maybe 10. So it's really interesting to see the 22, 20, 19. And these are, we can do it like this, and you can actually see it's 22, 20, and 19.3. So they're very close to each other, which makes the whole thing even more interesting out of a statistical standpoint, where I am most of my time thinking about how stuff like that impacts fantasy production and projections that we go with all the time. You kind of have to start with the market share in my view, because if you don't know how many targets somebody gonna get, or you don't have a projected target, you just gonna give them points out of thin air. Like, he's gonna get this much. Yeah, but what if, you know, he's wide receiver 3 on a team now that he used to be wide receiver 1 for another team. Take Randall Cobb. He used to be the number 2 guy in Green Bay, but is now the number 3 guy in Dallas. You kind of have to go with the market share to figure that out before you can start projecting anybody to do pretty much anything, and then look into how they fit with the scheme, with the quarterback, and what they do with the new team. But I mean, these guys are on the same team, but you still have to start from somewhere before you create a projection, in my mind. It makes it very difficult to just assign people score projections out of thin air and not have the target as your main standpoint, or starting ground is probably the more right word. But the next team up should be, let's see, I have to scroll through here, Los Angeles Rams, and we should head pretty much to the left. There we go. And we have the Seattle Seahawks, and here you can see even better what I was talking about before. This is more of an even one, or not even, more of an average one, with 20% going to the wide receiver 1, 16 to 2, and 13 to the third guy, and then 14 to the tight end, which is pretty interesting. In this case, as I didn't really view them as a tight end team, but 70 targets to the number 1 tight end is pretty good. We know that Jimmy Graham wasn't too successful in Seattle, if you even can call him successful there. But that's another story. Excuse me. And then we have the running back situation, which I've always tried to stay away from Seattle. ever since Marshawn Lynch left there, because it's been so different. Right now I have 200 to the number one back, which I see right now is error. It's supposed to be 45% of the carries, 200 to the number one running back, and 92 to the number two back. And I feel like we have a little bit more clarity this year than we had last year. So I'm more excited about the Seattle running back room than I was last year, with Mike Davis going to the Chicago Bears. So I'm a little hype about that too. And even more excited about Jordan Howard going to the Eagles, that I will look into on Saturday. So be sure to check that out. I know I already mentioned it, but I'll mention it again. But what we can see here with Seattle is they have an extremely low pass pool. Only 500 pass attempts, predicted pass attempts, and 448 rush attempts, which is really good. 76 going to Wilson, 92, as I said, to the number two back, who is Rashard Penny for me, and Chris Carson as the number one back. He doesn't have a big of a load as David Johnson and Gurley. He only gets 200, but we know how dangerous Seattle is when they start running the ball. So I'm very excited about Chris Carson. I'm excited about Rashard Penny as well. I think 92 might be a little low, considering that Mike Davis left. So that might have to be revisited as well. But it's a good starting point for him. And I think he can be sort of an Austin Eckler type player who will have 4 or 5 weeks of usability. Usability meaning he should be started if he's on your team. Unless you have somebody else who's better, of course. But you could start him if you're starting the best 30 backs. If you're playing a 10-team league, everybody's starting 3 backs, you can start him. Chris Carson, number 1. Nick Vannon, tight end 2. Ed Dixon, tight end 1 right now for me. David Moore, who I like a lot as a player, but not too much in fantasy. He's more of a DFS type guy for me. Doug Baldwin, I've demoted him to wide receiver 2, as I think Tyler Lockett showed that he can be the number 1 guy. I think Baldwin is more going to be that big play guy who doesn't get as many targets as Lockett, even though you see Lockett only has 100 predicted targets as wide receiver number 1, and I don't like that at all. I like Lockett if he can still stay cheap. I'm going to draft him, but I'm not going to overpay for him with the projected targets being as low as they are. That kind of concerns me if his draft value goes up too much. I like him as a complemental player, a flex, maybe a wide receiver 2, but I will never overpay for somebody who only predicted 100 targets for. But this is more of a average divide with this. It's just that their total pass pool is so low that it makes the target share so small. If we bump this up to 550, that doesn't do anything here because those formulas don't work, and that's why I have some issues. But you get my point. We can do like this instead. You see, he will get 110 targets, which is more reasonable. You can do 600 as well, and see how it changes to 120 for Lockett. So that's more of the Falcons, the Colts type numbers when it comes to pass attempts. The Buccaneers, teams like that who throw a lot more than the Seahawks do. So it's an average share, but a very low pass pool number. But they're an interesting team. I think you're going to find a lot of value if you draft Chris Carson and Rashard Penny in your leagues, especially Penny, like I said, more of an Austin Eckler type player in my mind right now, that you can really utilize in matchups. I started Eckler a bunch of games last year when I figured out, and I had a snapshot video too, I believe, about him on the YouTube channel where I knew that he would be valuable with his skill set compared to what he was facing that defense that week. And I'll have a bunch of those snapshot videos up on the website when the season started as well, so you can kind of figure out who to start in DFS. But we have one team left, and it's an interesting team, the San Francisco 49ers, but they're weird as well. Like, I haven't really known what to do with them. They've had so many injuries in the quarterback position, but also for the wide receivers. While you're going to see the tight end looking like 24% going to Kittle for 130 targets. I love that. And he's going to be a top 3-4 tight end for me. It's going to be Kittle, Ebron, Kelsey, and Ertz topping that list. I haven't really decided on the order just yet, but Kittle is definitely up there, especially with Garoppolo back. And he did as well as he did. He did not have his quarterback, so I think his ceiling is a little bit higher than the other guys. I mean, they have high ceilings, but they probably reached their ceiling, while Kittle has one more level with, I want to say a real quarterback, but his starting quarterback. But then you can see 19% of the targets going to the number one target, 15, and then a big drop to 9. I'm not super hype on any of these guys. I'm going to show you who I have. 184 to the number 1 back in carries, and 150 to the number 2 back, who I like because of that. 150 targets, carries to Tevin Coleman is very interesting. I'm very excited about that. I like the guy. I live in Atlanta, so he's going to be missed here. And then Matt Breida taking the number 1 spot. I haven't even put Jerick McKinnon on here. I think Coleman is just better, and a better version. Sure, Coleman is not like a main pass catcher, but I think these two complement each other pretty well. And reminds me a little bit of the Freeman-Coleman situation here. And then you're going to have, you see, they only cover, you can see it on the screen, my bad. They only cover 70% of all the carries, so you have 30 potential carries going to McKinnon, and you have 7 to Garoppolo, so it's 23 to McKinnon and a potential other guy, a fullback or another running back that we don't know, or a wide receiver. They get a few as well, like somebody like Dante Pettis. You want him to have the ball in his hands. Marcus Goodwin, I have as the wide receiver number 1 now. I really hope they draft one. I haven't looked too much into draft needs for the 49ers or what they're looking to do. It's difficult to follow along with every team and try to figure out what they're going to do. But we'll have a better picture of that after the draft, of course. And it'll be easier to adjust the projections afterwards and the shares afterwards than it is to project the draft pick and then the draft pick don't come because there's a trade or something. Look at the Jets getting Sam Darnold last year. I don't know how many believed they were going to get him, so you just never know. Right now, Goodwin, Pettis, really like Pettis. Loved him a couple of times in DFS. I think he can take another step and become a sneaky good pickup and just have a breakout year. I haven't predicted for 80 targets right now. That's me being conservative. If he breaks out, I'm gonna be so happy. Let me remove some stuff from the screen real quick and see if we can take a little look at him. Just a sneak peek of something I've been working on, and because we're talking about Dante Pettis, and I really like what he's got going on, so I wanted to show y'all his receiving patterns. There we go. This is slow. It's really slow. Oh well, let me continue talking a little bit instead while I'm trying to find it. Pettis is a guy that he just made the cut for the Fantasy Snapshot bundle, so he's gonna be roughly like 155th player, 150, something like that, because I'm that high on him that I had to get him in there. I bumped down Taylor Gabriel, who I don't know if you followed me that long, but I had a Twitter fight with him a few years back, calling him a gadget player. He did not like that. But to me, Pettis is a better version of Taylor Gabriel, and I'm much more excited to play him than a lot of other guys. But for the love of me, I can't find his receiving patterns, which annoys me, because I really wanted to show you what makes him so dangerous. There we go. This is an old video of mine. Let's see if I can bring it up on screen. You can't see it too well. You can see that he has 18% of his targets to the short left. That's not the best, but he has 14 to the deep left, which I love. I like players who have a lot of targets to the deep left and deep right. You can't see it, but it's 7% to the deep right, which is pretty good. His catch rate is terrible there, but the 75 to the deep left and 100 in catch rates to the deep middle is fantastic. And let's see if I can scroll down just a little bit. 19 yards per reception to the short left. League average, I believe, is 9.2. So he has 10 yards per reception more there, and he catches 80% of all balls. Like that's some high-end stuff. I'm not comparing him to Antonio Brown, but that's Antonio Brown peak numbers. He can't continue that unless he becomes the best receiver in the league. But it just shows you that he has really sneaky ability that should be taken advantage of. And if he can take that next step with a better quarterback, I'm super hype on having him on my team. 80 predicted targets right now is all right. Hopefully he can make a lot with them. But that's the 4 teams of the NFC West. I hope the stream quality has been good today. My internet is not the best, but I'm really happy to be back doing the live stream. It almost became an hour and half an hour or something. So that's a lot longer than it was last week. But I hope the sound quality was better, video quality was better, and I hope to see you again next week. It will be Monday again at 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'm still trying to learn these events thingies on YouTube, so bear with me. The streams will increase in quality as we move forward and get back into the league year as well. But don't forget to check out the YouTube channel for more content. As I said before, I have a ton of scheme fit videos. I have the snapshot bundle releasing in May. That's going to be fantastic if you love statistics. And I hope you found this live stream interesting, and let me know in the comments below what you think about it, what I can improve, what I can work on, and other subjects you would like me to talk about in the future live streams as well. These are non-scripted. As we get more people to join the chat, I will add in Q&A and stuff like that. That is what we do during the season, where it's strictly Q&A. But I want to add that during the off season as well, as we get more into the live streams. So have a wonderful week. I hope, as I said, I hope to see you again next week. And yeah, have a good one.